A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
Ideas ahead of their time have shaped a better world. A man who believed that culture could bring peace to the world. Kim Koo. The one thing I seek in infinite quantity is the power of a highly developed culture. This is because the power of culture brings happiness and meaning to our lives, and, by extension, to the lives of others. My wish, culture of peace. 150th anniversary of the birth of Kim Koo.
Bill Gates met with the key government and business leaders in Korea on Friday to discuss a cooperation on the small modular reactors and other next-generation nuclear technologies. The U.S. has cleared the way for foreign shipbuilders investing in American shipyards to build up to 2 U.S. Navy vessels overseas, fueling expectations of a major boost for Korea's shipbuilding industry. The death toll from Colombia's devastating earthquake has risen to 281 people, with at least 379 still missing, as hopes of finding more survivors fade beyond the critical 72-hour window and repeated aftershocks complicate rescue efforts. Bill Gates, who's currently leading TerraPower, a nuclear reactor company, is here in Korea. He's met key government officials and business leaders as Korea seeks to gain a footing in the nuclear power industry amid the AI boom. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
Prime Minister Han Sung-suk and TerraPower Chairman Bill Gates discussed the prospect of increased cooperation on nuclear power, specifically small modular reactors, in search of solutions to rising electricity demand amid the AI boom. The two parties met Friday in Seoul as part of Gates' visit to Korea. Gates emphasized his intent to expand cooperation with Korean companies going forward. He also held a series of meetings with other government officials as well as business leaders. Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwon met with Gates and joined the signing ceremony between Korea's SK Innovation and TerraPower. SK Innovation signed an agreement to participate directly in TerraPower's global projects. SK Group remains TerraPower's second largest shareholder, following a capital investment totaling $250 million. HC Hyundai Chairman Chung Ki-sun also met with Gates to discuss the establishment of facilities capable of producing up to 3 reactor vessels annually. Tucson and Ability also signed a contract Friday to manufacture core reactor vessels and internal support structures. TerraPower is building a commercial demonstration facility in Wyoming with an electricity output of 345 megawatts. The sodium-cooled reactor operates at atmospheric pressure to enhance operational safety, and the advanced modular system reduces high-level radioactive waste by 40%. Electricity demand is increasing rapidly worldwide to support the computing infrastructure behind artificial intelligence. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The Trump administration has opened the door for foreign shipbuilders investing in the U.S. to build 2 American warships overseas, raising hopes of new opportunities for South Korea's shipbuilding industry. Lee Ju-yeon explains.
U.S. President Donald Trump has allowed foreign shipbuilders to build 2 U.S. warships overseas, provided they invest in U.S. shipyards. According to a White House memorandum released on Thursday, The plan aims to allow the U.S. rapidly acquire initial vessels from overseas while transferring advanced foreign shipbuilding technology and production methods to U.S. shipyards. At the same time, it drives domestic investment to restore shipbuilding competitiveness to the U.S. Foreign shipbuilders will be able to build 2 vessels in their home country, provided that they satisfy specific conditions. First, they must establish a new U.S. shipyard or acquire a majority stake in an existing one. Trump added that all ships after the first 2 must be built in the United States. Second, they must hire and train an American citizen workforce to operate these U.S. shipyards. Third, they must license their proprietary shipbuilding technologies and techniques to their U.S. shipyards. Fourth, they must source the U.S. supply chain for the construction and maintenance of all ships built at these U.S. shipyards. Among Korean shipbuilders, Hanwha is well positioned to qualify, as it acquired Philly Shipyard in Philadelphia in December 2024. President Trump has consistently expressed interest in the Korean shipbuilding industry, aligning it with his MASCA, or Make American Shipbuilding Great Again, initiative to revive the U.S. maritime sector.
So we're going to probably look at some of these companies that are coming in from South Korea and other places, and they're working with us on ships. And we're going to also buy some ships that are made outside of the area.
This interest coincides with deepening bilateral cooperation, as Korea previously pledged to invest $150 billion in the U.S. shipbuilding industry as part of a broader $350 billion trade and investment agreement reached last year. Attention is now focused on whether this U.S. memorandum will pave the way for broader opportunities across the Korean shipbuilding sector. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
In the meantime, the U.S. is imposing tariffs on drones and drone parts as it aims to curb China's dominance in the drone market. Now, Korean drones will face tariffs of 15%. Park Jun-han has this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a proclamation imposing tariffs of up to 100% on drones and some of their components. Announced on Thursday local time, the White House says the new tariff program is essential to protect the national security and defense industrial base of the United States. Starting September 3rd, a 100% tariff will be imposed on drones that are considered critical for military and security use. This includes drones with a maximum takeoff weight of over 25 kilograms and those equipped with thermal imaging capabilities. Smaller drones without these sensitive features will face a 25% levy beginning next February. The tariff action authorized under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act is largely aimed at China. Chinese companies currently control roughly 90% of the global consumer drone market and over 70% of the commercial sector. Washington has warned that relying on foreign sources for key components creates severe cybersecurity and information leak risks. Korea, along with other U.S. allies like Japan and the European Union, will face a tariff of 15%, while the UK faces 10% tariffs. The U.S. government's actions could create an opportunity for Korean manufacturers to expand their presence in the U.S. market as Washington seeks to reduce its reliance on China-based supply chains. In fact, the Korean government submitted a document to the U.S. Commerce Department last August, indirectly raising concerns about a single country monopolizing the unmanned aircraft system market. To benefit from the lower tariff rate, Korean firms must prove that substantially all of their hardware, software, and technology originate from Korea, the U.S., or one of the other countries with special tariff rates. As drones rapidly become a core technology in both commercial and defense sectors, Korean companies now face the challenge of localizing their supply chains. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
South Korea's ICT exports hit an all-time high in July, fueled by soaring global demand for AI chips and other advanced technologies. Our Paek Ju-hee has the details.
Korea's information and communications technology exports hit an all-time record for the month of July, exceeding $50 billion for the second consecutive month.
Data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources on Friday shows that July ICT exports surged by 140.6% on year to $53.36 billion. Accounting for 54% of total exports, the ICT sector remained a major export driver, making up over half of all national exports for 3 consecutive months. With imports rising 37.3%, Korea reported an ICT trade surplus of around $35 billion. By item, semiconductor exports surged 178.8% on year to around $41 billion, recording triple-digit annual growth for 7 consecutive months. Shipments of computers and peripherals soared 353.9%, extending gains for 9 straight months as SSD exports alone leaped about 500%. Displays edged up 0.5% on rising demand for mobile OLED panels, while mobile phone exports increased 62.6%. By destination, ICT exports expanded across all major markets, with shipments to China jumping 194.7% to more than $22 billion, accounting for over 41% of the total. Exports to the United States and the EU also surged by nearly 187 and 202%, respectively. Experts say that this sharp surge in ICT exports is largely attributable to the recent rise in semiconductor prices and booming demand. Yet concerns are growing over how long this momentum can last, as foreign competitors quickly narrow the technological gap.
With the U.S. pushing for localized production and protective trade policies, along with China rapidly closing the tech gap, maintaining our export momentum will be tough. To stay ahead of these rising rivals, Korea must drive technological innovation and develop next-generation semiconductor products.
Korea's ability to maintain its technological lead while navigating international market shifts will determine whether this record-breaking export trend can be sustained in the long run. Baek Ju-hee, Arirang News.
Three days after a powerful earthquake struck Colombia, rescue teams are still searching for survivors, despite the critical 72-hour window having passed. Kim So-young has the latest.
Rescue efforts are continuing in Colombia 3 days after a powerful earthquake, as the critical 72-hour window for finding survivors has now passed. Colombian authorities say at least 281 people have been killed and around 3,970 injured, when 379 remain officially listed as missing. The number of households damaged due to the earthquake is reported to be around 45,000. However, a civilian-run missing person database puts the number of people unaccounted for at more than 4,200. Despite the passage of the so-called golden time, when the chances of finding survivors are believed to fall sharply, rescue teams and volunteers are still searching through collapsed buildings and piles of debris.
If someone got stuck over there, I'm going over there. Sometimes they don't let me in because I'm not from an institution. I don't have a blue cross or green or red. No, but we, the elders, have knowledge. We know what this is.
While search teams press on through the ruins, thousands of displaced Colombians are being cared for at shelters set up across the affected region. In Perilla, a sports arena has been converted into a shelter, taking in dozens of families left homeless by the quake.
We have families who are being received and being attended to. They spend the whole night here. They are being cared for. We have doctors and nurses who look after them.
At some locations, crews have begun removing rubble even as searches continue, raising concerns that hopes of finding more survivors alive are fading. Rescue operations have been especially difficult in isolated areas. However, residents refuse to wait, digging through the wreckage with their bare hands, determined to reach neighbors and relatives trapped below. That same determination is now driving the next phase of the response, as authorities say recovery efforts will continue in the days ahead. Kim Seo-young, Arirang News.
The Strait of Hormuz crisis is intensifying as Washington signals an indefinite blockade and Iran's axis of resistance launches attacks across the region. Shin So-eun has more.
As the standoff in the Strait of Hormuz shows little sign of a breakthrough, the United States is maximizing pressure on Iran, warning of an indefinite blockade and unprecedented economic isolation. During a visit to Panama, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hicks said Washington could sustain its naval operation for an unlimited period by rotating warships through the region. On Thursday, U.S. Central Command further leveled up Washington's unmanned warfare capabilities by launching its first multinational, multi-domain drone task force. Dubbed Task Force Falcon Strike, the initiative is designed to create a single deterrent force by integrating U.S. and regional drone capabilities, though officials have yet to disclose which allies will participate. Such preparation comes as Iran's mass drone attacks have rapidly depleted U.S. munitions and pushed Washington to look to use cheaper strike systems. Washington also looks to increase economic pressure on Iran, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warning of what he calls unprecedented economic isolation. Bessent said that the U.S. had moved from grand fury to economic fury, targeting Iranian leaders' global assets and restricting the flow of goods through Iran's strategic waterways.
We've destroyed their nuclear program. We've destroyed their conventional military. We're just going to keep on applying the pressure that we can apply and getting as much oil and gas out of the Middle East so that Americans can enjoy lower gas and energy prices.
Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister directly rejected President Trump's claim of total control in the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday, accusing Washington of intelligence failure and warning against an even greater miscalculation. That defiance has also played out across the region, with Iran-backed Houthis rebels attacking a vessel in the Red Sea 2 days ago, while the United Arab Emirates reported attacks on 2 of its vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The deteriorating maritime security environment is heightening concerns over global energy supplies, with the International Energy Agency forecasting oil supply to fall by 4.3 million barrels per day this year as inventories shrink. Shin So-eun, Arirang News.
The drought in Gyeongsang-namdo province here in the country continues to worsen, prompting authorities to extend a nationwide firefighting mobilization order as emergency water supplies are sent to hard-hit areas. An Sung-jin has this report.
Water gushes from a military truck into a dry irrigation ditch. The stream quickly flows toward a parched rice field, bringing much-needed water to crops. Gyeongsang-namdo province in the southeast of the country is struggling under prolonged drought. In Hamanggun County, near the center of the province, the situation is severe. At a reservoir in the county, the lake bed is fully exposed, and water levels have dropped to an emergency alert level where even with the floodgates completely open, there's barely any water left to release. 15 military water trucks had been deployed to keep the farmland supplied, and for the local farmers, every truckload makes a difference.
During my 28 years of farming, I have never experienced anything like this. Seeing the water come in gives me some comfort, and I'm so grateful.
This operation is part of a nationwide emergency response. National Fire Mobilization Order had been issued to dispatch emergency water supplies across the region. It was originally scheduled for 2 days until Thursday, with some 200 fire trucks from across the country sent to 14 cities and counties to deliver agricultural water. But now the order has been extended indefinitely. With the extension, the number of trucks will be reduced to 100, but water deliveries will continue in areas where agricultural water is most urgently needed based on local reservoir levels. And as the drought continues across the region, the Interior Ministry on Friday established a new task force dedicated to tackling the situation, bringing together officials from the Agriculture and Environment Ministries, as well as other related organizations. The government plans to use emergency funds to increase water supplies and minimize damage for residents and crops. Rain is forecast for parts of the province over the weekend, with some hope that this can relieve the dire situation and offer a lifeline for the farmers. Fire authorities say they will continue to monitor the weather before deciding when to lift the mobilization order. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The Blue House has reiterated President Lee Jae-myung's support for a 4-year, 2-term presidency with greater powers for the National Assembly. An official told reporters on Friday that Lee shares concerns about too much power being concentrated in the presidency, but believes any changes should be discussed and pursued by lawmakers. The official also stressed that the president was referring to neither a semi-presidential nor a parliamentary system. Now, this comes after a local media report fueled speculation over such a shift. It cited a lawmaker from the main opposition People Power Party who said he had agreed on the need for constitutional reform when the lawmaker raised the idea of a more decentralized model. One of his campaign pledges was to pursue constitutional change to create a 4-year, 2-term presidency. Now, currently, Korean presidents are limited to a single 5-year term. President Lee Jae-myung has called for greater consideration for young people and more efficient youth policy. Presiding over a related policy discussion with experts on Friday at the Blue House, he highlighted the need to shift towards policies tailored for young people to actually address the issues they're facing. He cited relatively fewer job opportunities as a key challenge facing people in their 20s and 30s in Korea. Tradition meets modern fashion as the country's largest exhibition dedicated to Hanbok, or traditional Korean clothing, has opened its doors here in Seoul. To tell us more, we are joined by our culture correspondent, Jo Young-eun. Welcome, Young-eun.
Great to be here, Dami.
So, Young-eun, Hanbok stands at the crossroads between tradition and everyday fashion. Now, you visited the exhibition yourself. Tell us more about this year's Hanbok Expo.
Right, Dami. I visited the 2026 Hanbok Expo here in Seoul, where visitors are getting a closer look at how the traditional Korean clothing is being reinterpreted for today. Have a look at what the exhibition has to offer. People line up to explore new styles and trends as traditional Korean clothing takes on a fresh contemporary look. This is the 2026 Hanbok Expo in Seoul, Korea's largest exhibition dedicated to Hanbok. Here, both traditional and contemporary styles of Hanbok come together on one fashion platform, showing how Korea's heritage can be reinterpreted in ways to find new meaning for modern audiences. As Hanbok moves beyond special occasions and into everyday wardrobes, the expo offers a glimpse of how this cultural heritage is becoming part of everyday life.
I came here to see what styles and trends are popular this year. Since we no longer live in the Joseon era, I wanted to see how traditional Hanbok designs are being adapted into everyday clothing and accessories such as hair ornaments that people can actually wear in their daily lives.
Now in its 9th year, the Hanbok Expo brings together 149 companies under the theme, "The Market Where Hanbok Are Made." Participants have the opportunity to explore the beauty of Hanbok through a custom Hanbok making experience, making traditional Korean clothing more accessible and familiar.
Hanbok is our traditional clothing, so I've always wanted people to keep wearing and enjoying it. I'm glad that events like this are still being held, because they give us more opportunities to experience and enjoy Hanbok.
Also showcased are businesses from Gwangjang Market, which has been a major hub for Hanbok production and distribution in Korea for around 120 years, and has now become a popular destination for those looking to experience the roots of Korean culture. The exhibition recreates the entire Hanbok making process, from selecting fabrics and adding intricate embroidery to completing the garment using traditional sewing techniques.
This market has a history of almost 100 years as a specialized textile market. We want to introduce the craftsmanship of these merchants and show people that Korea has truly exceptional clothing and fabrics. Many people may not be familiar with these details, but our natural silk fabrics in particular are of a quality that can compete anywhere in the world.
From traditional and everyday Hanbok to fabrics, accessories, bags, and lifestyle goods, a wide range of products are being offered at affordable prices, drawing a steady stream of visitors.
Now, that certainly sounds like an exciting experience and one that draws a lot of attention. Now, Young-eun, what do you think is driving the renewed interest in Hanbok?
Well, to begin with, the interest in Hanbok has been growing quite steadily. So as younger generation take a greater interest in Hanbok, the trend is building momentum, and the 2026 Hanbok Expo offers a glimpse into that transformation. Hanbok is also gaining greater visibility on the global stage. K-pop group Stray Kids has incorporated Hanbok-inspired looks into its performances, while group member Felix was selected as the Hallyu cultural artist and face of the Cultural Ministry's 2026 Hanbok Wave project. Korea is also pursuing UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage status for Hanbok lifestyle with a target official inscription of 2030. The practice was designated as a National Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2022, laying the groundwork for the global bid.
I see. Now, as Hanbok is increasingly viewed as a fashion rather than simply traditional attire, how is the market changing?
Young designers and brands are reinterpreting traditional elements through contemporary colors, silhouettes, and designs, making Hanbok more accessible as everyday fashion. Experts say that in recent years, younger designers have brought a more fashion-forward sensibility to Hanbok, drawing more attention in both Korea and abroad, and helping expand its presence in the mainstream fashion market. The question now is whether modern Hanbok can go beyond its traditional image and establish itself as a major part of the global fashion industry.
Incorporating Hanbok into the modern fashion market and efforts to make it part of everyday life can be traced back to the 1980s. But in recent years, Hanbok has been gaining global attention through more fashion-forward designs with a youthful, contemporary sensibility. In particular, as younger generations have become increasingly interested in Hanbok, the Hanbok fashion market has also been growing. We can see this trend firsthand at the Hanbok Expo.
Indeed, and so proud to see how Hanbok is gaining more popularity. Young-en, thank you for the coverage.
Thank you.
During the day, the heat is still hanging on across the country. Heat advisories are in place across Jeollado and Gangwon-do provinces, while tropical night advisory is in effect in Jeollabuk-do province. The good news is we'll get a bit of a break from the heat as rain moves in over the holiday weekend. On Liberation Day tomorrow, showers will mainly target the central regions of the country with anywhere from 5 to 50 millimeters of rain. Then the rain will start moving into the southern regions tomorrow afternoon and spread across most of the country by early Sunday morning. Jeju Island and the southern regions could see 20 to 50 millimeters of rain per hour, with total rainfall topping 120 to 150 millimeters of rain in some areas. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 24 degrees Celsius and Daejeon and Daegu at 23 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 32 degrees, Chuncheon 31 and Busan 30 degrees. Looking ahead, once the rain clears out, the heat will be back. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
And that is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
For thousands of years, one breath has endured. More than a martial art, it is the Korean way of life. Taekwondo, connecting the world. Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture. bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
Time to set the facts straight. Get Korea right. K-culture is sweeping the globe. K-pop, K-drama, K-movie, K-food, and even K-beauty. Korean cultural content is gaining more and more fans worldwide. It's indeed the golden age of K-culture. But with this growing interest comes an increase in misinformation about Korea. There's so much inaccurate information out there. Even AI can sometimes get it wrong. So, we must set things straight and correct all the misinformation. So here's the plan. The Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, VANK, and Arirang TV present the Get Korea Right project. Our goal is to provide accurate information on important keywords that come to mind when we think of Korea. Blatant errors and false claims that distort history. It's time to set the record straight, sharing the true history and culture of Korea while raising the national brand. Let's get started with Get Korea Right. Are you ready to join?
When did it all begin? The beginning of joy embedded in daily life, where steps of learning meet a bigger world, and history coexists. The legend continues. Innovative technologies come together to unfold a new future, building a better tomorrow. A joy accessible to all, always present in your daily life. JDC.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gan. Tomorrow marks Korea's 81st Liberation Day, a day to honor those who fought for the country's independence and reflect on the freedom they helped secure. Now, and the occasion this year is all the more meaningful for Glenn Winkle, the grandson of independence activist Shin Il-no, who supported Korea's independence movement in Hawaii. Now, after discovering his Korean roots only a few years ago, Winkle came to Korea and was granted special naturalization last year. His case also helped lead to a bill proposed in June that would expand family recognition for descendants of independence patriots living overseas. Now, ahead of Liberation Day, we invite Mr. Winkle to the studio to hear his remarkable story of discovering his roots and finding a new home here in Korea. A very big welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So let's start a discussion right away. So like I've said, tomorrow it's Liberation Day here in Korea, and I believe it's been a year since you have been naturalized.
That's correct, yes.
So I wonder, what does the day feel like for you? What does it mean for you?
Well, ironically, interesting, I knew about Independence Day, but it didn't really have that much meaning until realizing now that I'm a part of that history makes it so much more meaningful. And now to be a Korean citizen, actually celebrate independence, the 81st anniversary of independence, it's really special.
Right, it must be really heartwarming as well. So before we delve deeper into your story, let's first go back to the beginning. So how did you first find out that your grandfather, late Shin Il-no, was an independence activist?
Well, actually, originally I was just applying for my visa, my F4 visa. My F4 visa could be issued based upon my grandfather's heritage. However, when I went to immigrations, they told me that without Korean documentation, I couldn't get a visa. And so I began doing the research, trying to figure out, how do I establish a heritage, his lineage? Because I had no birth certificate, no ponjok, no way to establish him as a Korean citizen because he left in 1903. And so I kept going to immigration and pushing the issue. They said, no, without documentation, we can't issue the visa. And so when I was at Gangwon Daehakyo as a student, I had applied for 2 semesters. I took a semester off, took the income, the money from the tuition, and I hired a visa attorney to help me with the visa. And she said, we can't get you an F4, we can get you an F5. And so we began working on the F5 visa. And when it came time to submit it to immigrations, I said, I really do want an F4. I want to establish my Korean heritage. It's very important to me. She said, well, it's not possible. And so I said, I kept pushing her, please. And basically, so she did. So it was ironic that I arrived on Valentine's Day of 2023, and exactly 1 year to the date, on February 14, 2024, I received an email from my attorney, and point number 1 was they're going to issue a visa without documentation. And then part 3 was this term I'd never heard before, donglibugongja. And I was like, what does that mean? And when you translate it, it comes up as meritorious individual or independence activist. I'm like, what is that? I didn't know what it meant.
Wow.
And so over the course of the next year, because people were telling me what it meant and I was studying about it, I came to understand that what he'd been doing in Hawaii was supporting the independence movement here in Korea. And no one knew that.
Wow, that's when you knew it, in 2024.
2024, yeah.
Wow. So it must have been really hard tracking down records going back to 120 years ago. Could you tell us, for our viewers, what was the process like?
Well, in the U.S., you can go to different genealogy websites, and you basically type in the name Shin, and you just start looking, and there's thousands of pages to go through. And I'd be up to 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning looking at documentation, and then trying to identify, okay, who's this person? Who's this? Oh, that's not the right Shin. And going through family records, birth records, marriage certificates, alien certificates, going to the census websites and looking at the censuses and trying to figure out who people were. And so no one had actually done the genealogy of my family and understood who my great-grandfather was, who my great-grandmother was, even the fact that there was my grandfather had a sister who passed away a year after they arrived in Hawaii. No one knew that story. So I was digging all little bits of the story about my grandfather, but the independent activist part never came up because I'm just looking at records as far as establishing where he was and who he was.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Then was there any difficulty that you've faced, or you felt like, oh, I want to give up or something like that?
Well, the hardest part was that on the boat record when they came in at Hawaii, the name used by my great-grandfather was not the name he was known by.
Oh.
And so I came up with basically 3 different names, and I had to figure out which was the actual name. And so when I finally discovered it was Shin Tae-young, I was able to search that name and then find more records that way. So
wow.
It was the efforts of Dr. Hyuk Lee, the historian in Hawaii, who actually had laid out all the individuals from Korea that had come to Hawaii and knew what boat they came on and when they arrived, and that was the key documentation for me. Yeah.
Wow, it sounds like it was quite a journey.
But it was amazing because, see, most of us don't think about looking at our history and understanding our history. But when you do, you discover all kinds of things you didn't know. And, you know, it's always wise. Thankfully, have a recording of my grandmother, where she talked about these things. And I went over that recording hundreds of times, listening for little names and what does that mean, this name, and putting names together and assigning, oh, this was so-and-so's, and we figured out stuff no one knew in the family. So it was just by listening closely and paying attention, we learned about different historical events that occurred and who was whom and where they were and what happened. And it's really important to have that kind of a record.
Right, and it's really a good opportunity to better understand your backgrounds as well,
Absolutely.
right? So, but even so that you have discovered the details, your family history has been confirmed. Mm-hmm. We hear that your family was denied official recognition by. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, okay, so the important thing, my grandfather got recognized. That was the most important thing. And then when I applied for, for basically this, I guess it's only going to a status is what it was, and they said, well, we can't give you the card. And I was like, well, why not? Because my grandfather became a U.S. citizen and therefore was not a Korean citizen. Now, the irony was that the reason why he became a U.S. citizen was because he couldn't come back to Korea. Because you remember there were two factions in Hawaii, and one faction became into power with Syngman Lee. And so what happened was he denied those people from the other Korean Revolutionary Party access to Hawaii. From Hawaii to Korea. So he became a U.S. citizen in '55, so he could actually visit Korea in 1960. So There's a story behind the story it's kind of sad that the very reason why he wanted to come to Korea was to get citizenship to come to Korea. Because he'd been an alien since 1903. He was always listed as an alien. And it wasn't until 1954, I think it was, there was the McCarran Act that was passed that allowed Korean Americans living in Hawaii to become U.S. citizens. And that would allow him access to go back to Korea and visit. So that's what he did.
But then what happened to actually get recognized?
Well, he got recognized because of me, basically. So, but I'm still in the Netherlands, There's a bill apparently out there right now that hopefully will pass that will allow me to be recognized. But it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that he was recognized for what he had done because he worked so hard toward that goal.
Right, definitely. So, so like you said, your story, it's playing a big role to change the domestic law to better recognize other descendants from overseas as well. So if it really passes the parliament, what would that actually mean for you?
I think as it is right now, most of the Koreans that I meet are so grateful to me because of my grandfather, and that's unusual because in Western society, it's basically the individual themselves, not their descendants. And so that in and of itself is enough. The fact that people shake my hand and, oh God, it makes me teary because they're thanking me and they're essentially thanking my grandfather through me. It's an amazing thing that happens here in the culture here. I'm just like blown away by it, literally, because he was the activist, not me, but I received the recognition because he's not here anymore. And that's the part that I love. So the card is not as important. It's just that it's just a more of a formality type thing to recognize people because I think normally I'm an unusual case that I came back as an overseas Korean, came here, became a citizen, and then when we discovered I was part of this heritage, not to get recognized is like, okay, well, it's okay. Because the people recognize that, and that's what's most important.
Right, it really opens the gate for more recognitions moving forward. But could you tell us any story that did you really meet someone who really thanked you for this situation?
Many people. Oh, many people. I ride my bike a lot, and I'll be on a bike ride, and somehow the story comes up. Or someone has seen Iu Jeep Charles, the story, and they'll be like, oh, thank you so much. And what's interesting is that, when people thank me, it's not just like, oh, thank you. It's like, you can tell it comes from the bottom of their hearts. They're so grateful. And for me, that's why Independence Day is so important because, here in Korea, people really appreciate Independence Day because it hasn't been a democracy for that long. And so it's very close to their hearts. It's just a generation ago, really. And so you feel this deep-seated gratitude towards myself and my grandfather, which I really appreciate.
Well, it's really heartwarming as well. But did you expect this to happen before?
When I came here, I knew nothing about this. I only knew that August 15th was Independence Day because we celebrated it in the U.S. But I didn't realize the significance and how that day would be so significant in my own life because when I arrived in Korea the first time to visit, I arrived on Independence Day. I didn't know that was the date. And then all this has happened on Independence Day since. It's just like, wow, how does this happen like that? So very exciting.
Right, so after all of this recognitions, you have decided yourself to become a Korean citizen last year. Tell us, why Korea? And also, what really pushed you or made you decide?
Well, you know, I've been in the U.S. my whole life, literally. And, you know, Korea was not a main focus of my life at all. And it wasn't until about, now it's 10 years ago, I started attending a Korean church. And it was an all-Korean church, which is kind of funny because there were other people that were not Koreans. And the reason why they were at a Korean church because their spouses were Korean. So the question they always asked me was, why do you go to Korean church? Is your spouse Korean? I said, I'm not married. And they went, then why do you come here? And it was because I loved the Korean church, I loved the people, and I felt a connection. And I don't know what that was, but there was a really strong connection. I thought like them, the pastor and I on the same wavelength. I loved the church, I loved the food, and it was clearly a part of me that was identifying with that Korean church. Wow. And then for a long time I was asking the question, well, why am I going to this church? It's all in, I don't speak Korean, but I did sing in the choir in Korean, so I was learning Korean that way. But for the longest time I was asking, well, why am I going to a Korean church? It's kind of odd. People would ask me, why do you go to Korean church? So over time, it dawned on me that it was part of my next step. The next step was to make that move to Korea. And so I started looking into that. And I remember it wasn't when my mom passed away in 2020. That was a big change for me because she was that connection to Korea, really. We were going to visit here. And so over the course of the next year, though, it was almost as if after she died, the wheels started turning, and within about a year and a half, it was very clear in my mind I was going to move to Korea. It was very strange how that all happened. I think there's something going on that I don't know about with my mom and someone else. But it's powerful because it was literally November 21st of 2021 when it was very clear to me, I'm supposed to sell my house, my car, and move to Korea. And so that was the goal. I had no plan. I'd never been there before. But I knew that was what I was being called to do.
Wow, strong determination.
Yeah, it was very strong.
Wow.
It was a huge leap of faith, it really was.
Of course, really.
Because I'd never been here before. I didn't know where I was going to move to in Korea. I didn't know very much about Korea. I knew a little of the history, besides my grandfather was Korean. So it was quite the journey. But looking back now, it's very clear after what's happened since I've been here that there was clearly, I'm in the right place at the right time.
Wow.
It's really amazing.
Then, so I'm guessing after that very determined decision, you also worked to find your relatives here in Korea.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, one of the hard things is that I remember when I came here to visit, I went to the Pyeongsan Shin office with my last name Shin, assuming I didn't know which Shin it was. And so we assumed because Pyeongsan Shin is the highest numbers, that might be the place to start. And we started looking at genealogy records, and they said, well, there's thousands of pages of stuff here. We'll get back to you. And so I was realizing this is not going to be an easy task. So I went to the police department. And I said, well, okay, my great-grandfather's brother, Shin Gamno, he moved back to Korea in 1917, and he died here in 1943. Can we find his death record and then tie that to the genealogy records? And they asked me this really funny question, well, where did he live? I went, in 1943? I have no idea. So that was a dead end. So that was the start of realizing that this is not going to be an easy task to find them, even though there's good records. Going back in that time, there aren't good records. So what was funny was that because I did visit the Pyeongsan Shin office, the business office in Busan one time, and they asked me a question about how my great-grandfather got to the boat when he was living in Busan, and I didn't know. So I'm digging through records, and I found my grandfather's brother's passport information, and it showed the Chinese characters and showed that he wasn't Pyeongsan Shin, he was Yeolsan Shin. Oh. So I'm on the wrong family. So I shifted over now to a smaller subset of the family, and we're now working through that family, trying to locate the relatives on that side.
Wow, it's really interesting that you find like small evidences that really showed you your path. Then what happened when you met your relatives?
Well, I haven't met them yet. That's see, what we're going to do now is when I became a citizen, they asked me, do I want to keep my English name or my Korean name? And they recommend I keep the English name for now. So at this point in time, I want to change my name to my Shin name. But they asked me, well, where does the name fall in the genealogy records? And I said, I don't know. So the next goal is to find the family so I can identify where in the records my name actually should be, and then put the whole family inside the genealogical records so we know where they lie.
So were we able to identify them yet?
Not yet. No,
Not yet.
that's the process. Yeah, it's going to take some time, I think, because it's not going to be an easy task.
Of course.
But they're out there because here's the funny part. I know a common statement I kept hearing. He came from a large family in Busan. So a large family means there's a lot of descendants. And so his side of the family, I know it was his second wife, and Duk Hee Lee in Hawaii told me that his first wife had passed away. And so his second wife, he had basically my grandfather, the two sisters, and the young son. So it was only four children. And the youngest son was Gamno, who came to Hawaii and then went back to Korea. And he was the youngest son from the previous wife and part of that large family. So if I can find his death certificate or something, that's the first link in the piece in the puzzle.
Well, we really hope you would be able to find them, and maybe also this broadcast could help.
I hope so, yeah. For anyone who's listening out there, yeah.
Right. And then now going back to your life in the United States, we hear that you were a neuroscientist and also a sports coach. Do you have plans to pursue this career here in Korea as well?
You know, I would love to. One of the reasons I chose Chuncheon, I'm living in Chuncheon because they had a velodrome, which is a bank track for bike racing. Now, unbeknownst to me, when I got to Chuncheon, the velodrome was no longer there. But I love coaching cycling, and I coached the U.S. Air Force Academy for several years. And I love coaching. I coached at the Olympic Training Center, so a lot of Olympic and Paralympic athletes. And I love coaching the best athletes because I know enough about science and background and physiology and neuroscience and how to make a good athlete their best. And then in the cycling world here in Korea, cycling is not that good in terms of the world records. I mean, they're not the best. Japan's well represented, China's well represented, but Korea's not. And I thought, well, actually, maybe I could have a part in that because if I could. But the opportunity hasn't happened quite yet. My Korean has to be a lot better. My coaching skills, though, would apply very well because I've done it at the best level at the U.S., and so it's easy to do here by comparison.
Right. So is there anything that you're doing to prepare for your goal?
Not really. I'm trying to, for me, it's like I have to have a passion of what I do. I have to be really into what I'm doing. Otherwise, it's a lot of work. And it's not for the money. It's just really because I have great skills I want to apply, but I want to have the passion to drive me forward in that direction because that's what really makes things work for you. When you're passionate about something, it gets done well.
Right. So, so aside from this kind of area, like a sports coach area and a neuroscientist area, like, do you have any other possible things that you want to do here?
Many other projects. I'm working on one right now, which is interesting because a lot of times I see trends in the U.S. that are now taking hold here in Korea, and I also see, because I've seen what happened in the U.S. when these trends came along, what the downside was, or the bad side. And I see things happening here going like, no, don't do it that way. Because, so what I'm working on right now is really about, it's a worldwide problem, is obesity. And we've been studying for many, many, many years, and no one really gets it. And so I've been applying my understanding to it, and I think I have a handle on it now as far as how it benefits overall health as well as metabolic health. And so I'm working on developing a model to explain to people how to develop this model. I just got an email from a good friend of mine, and she asked the question, one of my daughters, she works in the yard all day long, she has her own farm, they want to lose weight. And of course, she doesn't know how to lose weight. I'm like going, it's really very simple. The question is, what are you telling your body? And it's only reading your instructions and doing what you tell it to do. And so you're giving instructions to gain weight. That's why it's gaining weight and you can't lose weight.
Well, I think it's easier said than done.
It is. It's very true. But you have to understand the body was designed to function in a certain way. If you understand what it's actually, if you understand like the rule book and you follow the rules, it makes sense. And it works every single time. I can go into great depth and I can give a whole seminar on it, but unless I go there. But that's why I'm really excited about that project. And I call it metabolic flexibility is the term I use.
Wow.
And so the average person is definitely not metabolically flexible. And so I'm working on that myself, developing a program where I can easily shift my metabolism from one side to the other, back and forth.
Wow, we'll definitely be looking forward to that next chapter of your career as well in the country. Now, finally, before we let you go, Mr. Winkle, is there a special message you would like to send to other descendants overseas, especially those who not even know their family history?
Yes, in fact, like I said, I didn't know my family history, and that's the key, is I didn't know my family history. So many times, I know there are many people in Hawaii, for example, that are descendants of Donglil Bugongja that don't know that they'd be recognized here in Korea because they don't understand the history really of what really happened and what they actually did. Even my grandfather has his two daughters still alive, and they talked about it recently. They said, we didn't know, he just went to meetings and did this and that. We didn't realize that he was a hero in Korea. And they said, thanks to you, he is. So I think for many people, it's this understanding and learning about your own history, of your past. We tend to think, oh, we're just looking towards the future and not thinking, look back. But there's a lot of what happened in the past which is relevant to what's happening in the future. And so I think that being aware of your history is going to be very, very important to understand your own life as far as directing your own future. And that,
Right, it's a very powerful message, not only for people who really are descendants, but also for just other normal people who, who want to know about their past, and it could really help in, pursuing their future as well, right?
Definitely.
Right, definitely. Mr. Winkle, thank you so much for sharing your story with us tonight.
It's my pleasure, it really is. Thank you so much for having me.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
오늘은 대한민국 임시정부를 이끌었던 김구 선생님의 백범일지를 살펴볼